You're listening to In Kap We Trust for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANYP Podcast or on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back, hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me call shit all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such eager my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Hello and welcome to another episode of In Kap We Trust here at the Always Next Year Podcast Studios. I am your host, Shane, and I am joined by co-host Rob. Rob, how are you, sir?
Doing good. Doing all right. Could have been better if the Phillies won today, but 2 out of 3. Can't complain. They looked good yesterday.
3 series in a row. Well, 1 split and 2 series of wins. They definitely look like they're playing decent baseball, inconsistent baseball, but decent baseball to say the least. You just mentioned we literally just watched them lose on, first of all, Dexter Fowler. I can't even get mad at that. Like, that was just such a cool, total dick move that he had. If you guys did not watch that Game 3 of the St. Louis series that just wrapped up today, Dexter Fowler leapt into the crowd off a ball off Andrew McCutchen's bat while holding himself up in foul territory, makes the catch on a ball that was interfered with by a fan, and then tapped the fan on the face with his glove and winked at him, which is just such a baller move. So Dexter Fowler, even though you had a dog shit series by most accounts, that was pretty cool. But again, so the Phillies, since we last spoke, Rob, they took 2 out of 4 from the Cubs and then 2 out of 3 from both the Brewers and the Cards. 3 very, very good baseball teams. So again, by all accounts, team is playing, pretty well. Some notable things that we talked about throughout the week, or not that we talked about, but Phillies Twitter talked about, was Gabe Kapler's usage of the bullpen. This came in large part after an Arrieta early yank, and then using 5 bullpen arms for limited innings there. But your evaluation of Gabe Kapler and the bullpen, and considering all the circumstances, what do you got for us?
I just think that, a few times this season and in some recent series, he's been a little bit too quick to go to the bullpen. I mean, if his starter's given up maybe, say, 4 or 5 runs in 5 innings, and there are 90 pitches, and they're not exactly on point, but they're not getting rocked either, you can still afford, in my opinion, to leave them in there for another inning or so. See how much you can get out of them. See if you can get, 105, 110 pitches out of them before going to the bullpen. Don't be so quick to really pull the string and go to the bullpen in the 5th or 6th inning. Just, if you can ride the starter a little bit longer, even if they've given up a few runs, try to do it. Try to save the bullpen a little bit, because when they start getting tired, and when you have guys like Neshek needing days off and stuff like that, which, by the way, that was totally ridiculous.
Asshat.
Yeah, but when you need that, it puts a strain on the bullpen. So you need to get the starters to go deeper into games so that the bullpen can be more effective when they do come in.
Yeah, I mean, I come from the side that I'm totally fine with Gabe's bullpen use. While I do see the one-off instances that Nola start in particular, leave your ace in. You got a 5-run lead or a 6-run lead, whatever it was at the time. But I kind of take a look at the whole bigger picture. You and I talked about it a little bit on the last In Kap We Trust. Both me and Connor spoke about it in the Crossing Borders episode that we had. You take a look at all the arms that are on the IL right now. One of which is Pat Neshek right now, because for God knows what, they're saying shoulder, but might be ego. Who knows?
Adam Morgan, most recent
Adam
addition.
Morgan. He goes on, and we got but 4, arms that we can truly trust at any given time anyway. But you have Robinson on the IL. You have Arano, who just had surgery on his elbow. We don't know the status of him coming back. We have all these different valuable pieces right now.
Yeah, Tommy Hunter,
yeah, all year. not available to us. What Cap's been able to do right now, to me, is just been incredible. He's been leaning on ninth inning Neris, which, holy shit.
I'm a fan again, I have to admit.
He's always had the stuff. He's just got that mental, just the second things start going well, he looks like a deer in headlights. But you're right. I mean, when he's good, man, he is damn good. And right now, was he 10 for 10 in save opportunities?
Yes, he is. He's got an ERA of 1.9, and I think it's actually an ERA of 1.1 if you exclude, I think it was one game where he gave up like 4 runs in an inning.
Early on in the year.
Yeah, early in the season, one of his first outings.
Yeah, you have ninth inning Neris, you had Adam Morgan, and you have, first of all, Alvarez is starting to pitch again. Can we agree that we can probably stop saying he's the human white flag as what Jack Fritz would call him?
He's looked better. Alvarez certainly has looked better. He had a rough start to the season. He had a number of bad outings, that one in particular against the Nationals where he blew that game, where I just about chucked my remote through the TV.
And I'm pretty sure that was the game L was at. So
it honestly, was a game where he blew it with 2 strikes in the 9th inning.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the game.
And then Soto hit that home run in extras. That was a foul ball.
Well, we can't say for sure, but it was 100% a foul ball. Yes. So MLB, take a look into that.
We can't say for sure, but we can say for sure.
That's correct. Yeah, we can judge the trajectory of that baseball over the foul pole. But again, the bullpen arms for Gabe, dude. I mean, how can we get mad? Look at who he has to use. He has no one. Tonight we had to pitch Yaxel Rios, another call up. We have Enyel de Los Santos half the time, up in the pen. Sir Anthony hasn't been Sir Anthony, even though we've called on him to be Sir Anthony. He's not
all season.
How can we judge him? How can we get so angry at that? It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's a tough situation for Gabe. I do get that with the lack of relievers due to injuries, but that's that just adds on to my reason that he needs to ride the starters a little bit deeper into these games, because he doesn't have a full array of arms in the bullpen right now. So that should be more incentive to get these starters to go, 6 1/3, 6 2/3, 7 innings if they can, even if they've given up 4 or 5 runs. Because right now, these starters, even when they're not at their best, are more effective than some of the, the lower ranking bullpen guys that we have. I'd much rather have an Aaron Nola out there who's pitching at half of his capability than have Sir Anthony out there right now.
In Aaron Nola's case, yes, I agree. But when you look at some of the other members of the rotation, I do get nervous, and I think it's, toss it in a hat and pull it out, and whatever you get, you go with. If you're going with a 7th inning of Arrieta who's getting, hit around a ton, he's having a strange season. We'll talk on that in just a moment. But you have Arrieta going in, and you got a 7th inning with him. He's getting shelled all night. Not giving up a ton of runs, but getting shelled. How much longer do you want to roll the dice with that before you say, all right, let's give Enyel de Los Santos an inning. Let's give Drew Anderson an inning, or whomever the hell is in the call-up of the week in the pen. To me, it's a toss-up. I feel like you're living on the edge either way, and you're just hoping to God whoever takes the mound gets you through it. So it's to me, for what he has had to work with, I feel like Cap has done a really, really nice job. And the bullpen's like 5th in baseball, or 8th in baseball, something like that. They're top 10. They're top third of the league at the very worst. And they're doing that without their 3 of their 4 best pieces available.
I think they just get more heat than they would because of the amount of games that they blew in this year.
It's always noticeable.
Yeah, that's when it comes to a forefront, is when they blow a game. They've blown a few against the Nationals. They've blown.
Well, they're not sexy. It's, when that happens, you notice it. But when they go 5 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts, people are like, yeah, it was a good game. Starter went, 4 innings and got knocked around a little, but the offense really came through. Well, no, you have 10 strikeouts and 5 strikeout inning or shutout innings from your pen, but no one gives a shit about that. It drives me crazy. I would argue, now I haven't looked this up, but I would challenge people to sit there and look at the amount of games that our bullpen went 4+ innings and saved our game for us versus the amount of games they've blown, quote unquote. I would assume our success rate is higher than our failure rate. I would say.
I gotta say, being a reliever on a baseball team is like being a kicker on a football team in terms of just being a thankless job. You know, when you make your kicks, you don't get any credit. When you shut the guys down out of the pen, you don't get any credit. But when you blow it or when you miss a kick, all the blame's on you. So that's a tough thing being a reliever. So with that being considered, I mean, the Phillies, all things considered, they have done a good job out of the pen this year. Guys, when they've been called on, as I said, Sir Anthony's been subpar. Nicasio's been inconsistent. He blew a game against the Cubs, which kind of pissed me off. And then Nicasio, again, gave up 3 runs in garbage time last night, which is not a good look for him. But other than those two, the rest of the bullpen's been pretty good. I've been really surprised by Edgar Garcia. He's come up and he's pitched really well. He's pitched some...
Yeah, and he's a 1-pitch pitcher. He's not even a 2-pitch pitcher. He's like, let me just throw sliders all day. You know, his fastball's okay, but I've been impressed too.
I mean, he's come up in some important high-leverage situations, too. Situations where they're up by a run or in a tie game or something like that. And he seems unfazed by it. Yeah,
he seems to have just a really just even-keeled pulse all the time. So he's definitely someone who's impressed me. And he's someone that I wasn't overly excited about, you know, coming up. But he's been really impressive. And you said it, man. I mean, for Gabe to sit there and entrust him in those high-leverage situations that quickly into his major league career, that's Sir Anthony-esque, you know. That's kind of the pace that he's on. So, you know, again, really impressed by him. Impressed by J.D. Hammer so far coming up in his 3 games.
Best name ever.
He is arguably the best name in the history of sports, not just baseball. But, J.D. Hammer. And the look to go with it, man.
I know, right? The glasses, the goggles, awesome. The long hair.
He is so funny. Just a strange dude. But
it's like Rick Vaughn 2.0.
I know. I hope he comes out to the Wild thing for the rest of time. I don't know what he's actually coming out to, but who cares? But fun pitcher, fun guy to root for. But you mentioned, you know, some of the starting rotations. So, hitting chords now in new Studio 2.0. But Jake Arrieta, so first of all, super cool, really classy by Chicago fans. He pitches in Chicago. He goes there. I think he pitched game 1 and pitched by his stat line, pitched okay. But if you watch that game, he got knocked around. He may have only given up the 1 run and went 6 innings, but it was the weirdest 6 inning outing by a starter to only give up 1 run. That's like Vince Velasquez stuff. He got hit a lot. But pitched okay. Then he comes out against Milwaukee, I want to say. I think it was Milwaukee. Right? I think it was the last game of the Milwaukee series, or second to last game of the Milwaukee series, whatever it was. Goes 8 innings and was phenomenal. Got his swing and miss stuff back. That would have been the second game of
the Milwaukee series.
Yeah. So swing and miss stuff was back. What a weird season from Jake. You know, I can't put my finger on it. You know, he looks like he has his swing and miss stuff back. He's throwing 95. Everything moves. And then he goes out and he gets shelled and only gives up, you know, a run or 2. But he gets shelled, and then he goes for a 3-game stretch where he's given up 3, 4, 5 runs in 3, 4, or 5 innings of ball. Jake Arrieta, what can we expect from him for the rest of the year? I don't get it.
At this point, I really don't know either. It's tough to tell. He's been so up and down. But the good thing about Jake is that for the most part, he's avoided getting completely shelled in the runs department. You won't see him have an outing where he gives up 5 or 6 runs.
No.
You know, his worst outings, maybe he'll go 5 innings, he'll give up 4 or 5 runs. But, I mean, he's been up and down, but his worst hasn't been terrible. I mean, his worst at points has been bad, but it's never been terrible. And at his best, I mean, he's been pretty good in the starts where he's been at his best this season. So you just hope that he can at least, you know, continue to tread water throughout the season, maybe have a run of pretty decent starts in the second half. I mean, he is a veteran pitcher. He's a guy who's won a World Series before. I think that is something that's important. That's something that will help him out as far as, you know, getting through the second half of the season and putting together big starts when they need him to. Just because he's been in this situation before, he knows how to get it done. So that's an important thing to me, and I just hope that that's what he turns into in the second half.
Yeah, he definitely is like a pro's pro. You know, you can trust in him to not give you a total clunker. I agree with that. But I do sit there and I think, how long can we live dangerously with him getting shelled and hit around before his stat line turns into Vince Velasquez? To me, that's horrifying. If you're saying, hey, your starter's never giving up more than 3, 4, 5 runs every, but he may not go more than 5 innings. Well, if it pisses us off with Vince, why is it not pissing us off with Jake Arrieta? Now, some people are certainly off the Jake bandwagon because all of his media comments, and he seems to never point the finger at himself. But for the most part, we're a little easier on him and a little quicker to trust him to get his stuff together before we were ever trusting of a Vince Velasquez. And some of their issues are very much the same. They miss location and they don't miss bats and they get shelled. Even when they're giving up 1 or 2 runs, everything off the bat it's barreled up. It just happens to go right at someone.
Well, that to me, the comparison between him and Velasquez, that comes down, and at least in my opinion, to the fact that Arrieta, like I said, is that veteran who has had success before, and he's shown in his past that he's able to, get things going when they aren't going great. Whereas Velasquez, all we've ever known him as is a guy who goes 5 innings at the most and throws 110 pitches. So we've never seen Velasquez be able to get over that hump, whereas we have seen Arrieta
one San Diego start in 2015 or whatever it was, 2016.
Yeah, against San Diego, who was the worst.
The worst offense,
historically the worst hitting team in baseball.
Yeah, so I can see why it's easier to trust someone like Arrieta. I do have a growing concern. I do sit there and think, how much longer are these barrel balls going to continue to find gloves? How much longer until this weather truly warms up at a consistent rate where, as Charlie would say, it's hitting season? Well, damn it ain't just hitting season for the Phils. Some of these balls are going to fucking travel. And that's just super alarming for me. If we can get the Jake who threw in Milwaukee, okay, you got it. Whatever. You want 8 innings? I would trust that for the rest of the season. Not always going to go 8 innings, but he had his stuff. He had his command. And he was missing bats again. That's the biggest thing for me right now for a pitcher like Arrieta. For me, it's really easy to tell if he's not missing barrels and he's never getting swing and misses. Well, he's just not on. He may only give up 1 or 2 runs, but give it a start or 2 and expect a little bit of a rough patch. So hopefully that kind of propels him, that last 8 inning start in Milwaukee, to again continue missing bats, continue never being barreled up, and hopefully with the way this entire rotation has kind of worked out to be, we need something consistent outside of Zach Eflin. Zach Eflin's been
even he's been a little bit down the past couple starts.
Yeah, but he's still, look, at the end of the day, he's your 4th or 5th starter, and if that's still what you're getting from your 4th or 5th starter, I'm pretty okay with it. And I trust him more than I trust at this point. And you know how big of an Eichhoff guy I am. I trust him more than Eichhoff. I trust him more than Irvin. I trust him more than Velasquez. I trust him more than Pivetta. And, going into the season, I probably trusted him the least because I've never really been an Eflin guy. But he's proving he's a professional pitcher out there, who is probably the only one in the rotation who ever has at any time any real true power stuff. Vince Velasquez kind of does, but it's flat and just constantly being barreled. At least Eflin sinks or runs, and sometimes he cuts it. I mean, he's a pitcher. He's a real pitcher. He's Eichhoff just with 6 miles an hour more, and that really, really helps. As we saw today, who got lit up again, Jared Eichhoff.
Yeah, he's been getting barreled the past few starts. Not really a concern yet for me. I think that Eichhoff will bounce back from that. But getting back to Eflin, though, a great start to the season. Been getting hit around the last start or 2. Definitely Sunday in Milwaukee, you get hit around a good bit. But, it's what Eflin is. He's not going to be excellent every single time out there. He's not going to be...
But he competes.
He does. And he's going to have a start here and there where he goes 4 or 5 innings, gives up a few runs more than he normally does. I mean, he's human. That's what happens. We can't expect, Eflin to go 7 or 8 innings of 1 or 2 run ball every single time out. And you got to remember that a couple of those outings that he had were against the Royals and Miami. Not the greatest offenses in the world. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. But for the most part, he's been solid this season. He's been consistent. He's been really good at throwing strikes and pitching to contact, which is one of the things I've said before that I really appreciate from a pitcher, because it's how you get, it's how you're more efficient. I mean, if you're out there striking out a whole bunch of guys, it's great, but you're not going to get through 6 or 7 innings with less than 100 pitches. Whereas Eichhoff, he can get through, when he threw his complete game against the Marlins, I think he only had like maybe 98, 99 pitches, something like that. Because he's pitching the contact, he's getting them out on the second or third pitch every at bat. And that's what I like to see from a pitcher.
See, I'm so much that way. I understand that today's baseball is just power fastballs with devastating off-speed pitches. You know, most pitchers are 2-pitch pitchers and they have an average third pitch, and that is what it is. But I sit there and I look at all these guys in our rotation. You know, everyone, like Jared Eichhoff, and Cole Irvin are the two who are like old school kind of pitchers. Like they have to pitch. They have to have a great game plan. They have to exercise perfect movement and location. Like, you can miss with 95, 98 with a little bit of run or tail. You kind of can't miss with 89 mile an hour fastballs, 87 mile an hour fastballs.
That's what's been hurting Eichhoff, especially today.
Absolutely. And it's also hurt in his last start, Cole Irvin, who the Philadelphia Phillies decided to have a really quick leash for. And that surprised the hell out of me, honestly. You know, I didn't expect for him to get sent back down. And then I thought, with him being sent back down, I thought they're going to give the spot back to Velasquez. They're not going to go to Pivetta. I think that they want Pivetta to really establish consistent stuff down at AAA. I didn't think he had enough time down there. He pitched okay. Everything I thought, they did the opposite.
Really strange how it worked out.
Would you have got that quick of a trigger with Cole Irvin? Like, would you have sent him down after being shelled in Chicago? I mean, he truly only made 4 bad pitches.
Personally, no, I wouldn't have. Again, he gave up 7 runs. He gave up, I think it was a 3-run homer and a grand slam. So really the 2 mistakes, I mean, he made 4 bad pitches, but 2 mistakes that really cost him in that game. No, I wouldn't have had the quick trigger with him. I think that it was inevitable that at some point Pivetta would come back and take that spot. Sure. But not that quickly, though.
The rotation's better with Pivetta in it than it is without it. And I know it's going to piss off every one of our listeners. It pisses off everyone on Twitter. Probably pisses you off. You were sitting there saying it doesn't.
Except for Jack Fritz.
So, except for Fritz, yeah. But you have, look, logically looking at it with Pivetta, if Pivetta becomes even half of what we all across baseball thought he was going to become this year, the rotation's better with him in it than with Velasquez. It's better with him in it than Cole Irvin. Arguably better with him in it than even Jared Eichhoff, whom, again, I love more than Nick Pivetta. But logically speaking, if Pivetta straightens his shit out, like, he's kind of the guy. Like, you need him, which is why I think that they needed to invest more time in him in AAA. Cole Irvin, I think, could have spotted you another few more starts. Now, granted, his starts would have been against St. Louis, who probably, would have tagged him a little bit. And St. Louis hasn't been overly hot, but still.
I mean, they're under 500 now, but they still have a good offense.
They do.
Their pitching has been terrible.
Their bullpen right now is collapsing in the last couple of weeks. But, then you have the Dodgers and you have the Padres. Like, I understand the quick trigger to a degree, but don't bring up Nick Pivetta yet, in my head. Granted, Nick Pivetta, after the first inning, looked fine.
Yeah, he pitched. But, I'd say he pitched pretty well after that first inning.
Yeah, again, I felt like there was times where the lack of a third pitch or the trust in a third pitch really extended his innings and extended pitch counts, but it is what it is. But yeah, the Cole Irvin thing, man, it's strange. He also got pulled last night or 2 nights ago, whenever it was, 34 pitches into his outing. Not that he was pitching great. I think he'd given up 4 runs, but the Phillies have a lot of games, coming up, and I think that they felt as though he maybe comes up as a long man, which I'm intrigued in. But the victim in all of this, and we haven't yet really discussed it, Vince Velasquez. So here is where I will criticize Gabe and his bullpen usage. The Philadelphia Phillies come out and say, first of all, I love the fact that Vince Velasquez comes out and says, yeah, this spot's mine. That night, Gabe Kapler goes, no, Like, we don't know what we're doing yet, but I don't think it's going to be Vince, is basically what he said. So good for you, Gabe. The Philadelphia Phillies as an organization say we're committing to him in the bullpen now, right? And I love that. I think that that's the right decision for this team and for this rotation. That happens. They go out and they utilize him out of the pen. He goes 2 innings of shutout ball, right? 2 1/3, something like that.
Sounds about right.
And struck out like 5 guys. Like, he was good. A guy who has not pitched in the bullpen since his rookie year with any kind of consistency anyway. Just came off the IL with an elbow injury or forearm injury, whatever they're calling it. He pitches, he gets 1 day off, and then he pitches again, and he gets lit the hell up. Why the hell would you go ahead and put Vinny in again? He's been pitching every 5th day for 3.5 years. He just came off an injury. That, to me, was just setting up Vince Velasquez to fail and setting up the fan base to go, well, he sucks again. No, he shouldn't have been freaking pitched. That's my criticism of Gabe in that. What's your stance on Vinny V in the pen? Are you cool with it? You want him off the roster? What?
Well, honestly, I want him off the roster, but I don't think it's going to happen, so I'd much rather have him in the bullpen than in the starting rotation. I think that he's going to, if he wants to stick around here, then he needs to be 2008 Brett Myers. You know, he didn't get set down.
Hey, that's what we wanted Nick Pivetta to be.
I mean, he got relegated to the bullpen. Myers ended up doing pretty well with it. Ended up getting his starting job back for the postseason. But yeah, that's what we need from Vince Velasquez, because personally, that's where I think that he would be the biggest help to the team. That's where he would be the most valuable, is coming out of the bullpen. Because when you're in the starting rotation, you're only going 3-4 innings, then what good does that do? You're effectively a long reliever at that point if you're going 3-4 innings. So put him in the bullpen. He's going to be a lot more effective there. Power stuff works better coming out of the bullpen than it does in the starting rotation. And if he's only pitching, an inning every other night and he's throwing 97, 98 miles an hour, I think his stats are going to reflect that he'll be much better off because of that than he would be in the starting rotation, because he misses his spots too much.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have that out pitch. If you're only pitching 1 inning every other night or so, that doesn't really matter as much as if you're pitching 5 innings or trying to go 5 innings. He never makes it to the 5th inning, but yeah, out of the bullpen, definitely a much better situation for Vince Velasquez than being in the starting rotation.
Yeah, to me, so here's the thing. Sir Anthony Dominguez cannot go. He can't close out an inning of any kind, start an inning, or pitch 2 complete innings. He can't throw, an inning in a third or an inning in 2/3. That break, that breath of like, I've gotten through this inning, we're good, let me sit down in the dugout and try to collect myself, and then ramp it back up again. It doesn't work for him outside of his last appearance. I know he did it. But to me, that flexes Sir Anthony into a position that's far more to his suitability. It's Sir Anthony can be his true 1 inning guy, or let me come in the middle of an inning and get out of these high leverage situations and know that I'm not going to go out and take the ball next inning, because Vince, an accustomed starter, is used to, first of all, pitching in jams and attempting to get out of them. But he's used to taking that breath of, I got out of this inning, sitting down in the dugout and taking the mound again. That's important. So for me, adding Vince there in today's baseball where starters do not go deep, he is invaluable. Having a guy that can consistently give you 2 innings out of the pen at a time every 3 days, that's awesome. And one time through the lineup, Vince is pretty decent. I had the numbers written down and I don't have that sheet because it's the one sheet I didn't pull out right now. But yeah, first time to the order is his most consistent ERA. So, for me, out of the pen, that's a pretty strong way to go. But again, we take 2 out of 4 from the Cubs. We go to Milwaukee. We take 2 out of 3 from them. I think it was unrealistic to sit there and assume that we were going to sweep them. I'm not mad at the 3rd loss. I don't know that too many people in Philadelphia are. One thing that I did take away from that series was Harper in the final 2 games there. He collects 4 hits. One of those games was a 3-hit game. Harper's season has been just subject to a lot of scrutiny from, I think, uneducated baseball people and people who are specifically looking for a batting average or specifically looking for home run totals. They're not looking big picture. To me, even though it extends certainly beyond and before the Brewers series, that's kind of where it started. Carry that into what ended up being a little bit of a coming out party here in Philadelphia for him, or a second coming out party. You can hear the rain in the background. This is really going to piss us off. But an incredible Cards series. Harper's back, man. Harper's fun again. I can't get enough of watching his swing when it's right.
This series was a thing of beauty against the Cardinals. He had, back-to-back 3-hit games. He was going the other way a bunch. His home run was opposite field. He had an opposite field double today. Had a couple opposite field base hits mixed
Singles
in there.
right up the middle.
Came up with huge timely hits as well. He had that 2-run double to get them on the scoreboard in the first game of the series to start the comeback. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the home run to, I think it was the third and fourth runs last night.
Yep.
And then doubled home 2 more after that. And then, they didn't get a whole lot of offense today, but what offense they did get came from him and Reese. So it's really good to see him swinging the bat the way that he did in this series. And I love the fact that he's going opposite field because it means that he's staying with these pitches. He's not pulling off. He's not trying to hit the ball 5 miles and, his head's looking towards the right field stands as his back crosses the plane like it was when he was slumping. It's just a nice, easy, smooth swing that we're seeing from him, and it's producing some really great results. And that's something to be really excited for as the season goes along, if he can continue hitting like this.
I could not agree more. I get so irrationally excited from seeing him tag pitches to the opposite gap. I don't even care if they get caught. Just to see him take the ball that way, utilize that side of the baseball field. It just, again, you said it. He's seeing pitches in. He's starting to get that timing down, and almost all of his productivity over the last 15 or I think his last 11 games or 15. I think his last 15 games he's hitting .333. I can't remember. Corey Seidman just tweeted it out, but he's 20 for his last 60. And I would argue that at least 15 of those hits have been up the middle or to the left side of the ball field. Good for him for beginning to hang on these pitches like that.
Look where those 2 moonshot home runs that he hit against Colorado went, both to center field. Even that ball that he hit in his final at bat last night when he was going for the cycle, it was caught by the center fielder for the out, but that ball was smoked.
That was a ripped line.
If he hit that any higher, he might have gotten that triple to complete the cycle.
Maybe.
So the fact that he's going up the middle and he's going to left field, it's really encouraging to see.
Oh, yeah. And we'll talk a little bit more on Bryce Harper when we talk about the offense as a whole soon. My other final takeaway from the last 3 series, the Cubs, the Brewers, and the Cards, is the fact that I would like to never see Brandon Woodruff pitch against us ever again. I think he's thrown 17 innings of shutout baseball against us, where he's given up no, not shutout baseball. That's wrong. Andrew Knapp hit a goddamn home run of 1-run baseball against us. And I'm pretty sure he's I think he has 4 or 5 hits against us in those 2 starts. He's absurd. So good for Brandon Woodruff. I don't believe in you as a pitcher or anything, but you just absolutely have our number. So I would like to never see him pitch against us again.
I believe in him as a hitter. He hit a 450-foot home run against Kershaw in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, he's nuts. But yeah, so that was my final takeaway from those last 3 series that have now been completed. So on to another topic that is it's super disappointing to see and hear. Odubel. We don't know everything. We can assume at this point that the things that we have been told in the media and in all these reports about choking and minor scratches, cuts and bruises, things like that, we can assume this all to be true. He's been put on the exemption list or whatever it is. He's been administrative leave is I think what they called it. We don't know everything, but if he did this, I don't know about you, dude, but I don't want him anywhere near the city of Philadelphia in this organization.
No, he can't be. If it comes out that he did indeed do what he supposedly did, what he's rumored to have done, then he needs to be off the team immediately. They need to cut him. They need to distance themselves from him as much as they possibly can. But with that being said, they need to do their due diligence. They need to wait until the facts come out. You don't want to cut a guy and then find out,
Nothing happened.
This is all fabricated.
Yeah.
Kind of like Kansas City did with Kareem Hunt. I don't know how much that was fabricated, but you want to wait until the facts come out. You don't want to jump the gun and say, okay, this guy's out of here, and then find out that it was just all made up. Because that does happen, and I don't doubt that this is true. I don't want to speculate as to if it's true or if it's not, but if it is true, he needs to be gone. Like yesterday.
I would love for if it has to happen in our city, if one of Philadelphia's athletes is put into a situation where this is the light that they've drawn to themselves, to their family, to the city, to their teams and organizations, I would love to be the organization that does the right thing immediately and says, when we have been provided with all the facts, that we can make the educated decision as to what to do with this person as an employee of our organization, get them out of here. To me, Gabe Kapler and his wife, they have a foundation specifically speaking out against this act. How the hell can you welcome that person back into your clubhouse, whether or not he faces some sort of suspension or ban or whatever, or whatever happens? How does he come back and play for Gabe Kapler? To me, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't think he does.
So I would love it. And again, we don't have all the facts. Nothing has been confirmed. At this point, we have all speculatory things that are coming from a multitude of different sources. We can assume, if we assume that everything that we've been told has been accurate, or at least accurate to some degree, his time in Philadelphia needs to be done. And I'll be incredibly proud of the Philadelphia Phillies organization if they do that and do the right thing by that young woman and by women who unfortunately face that type of, situation from professional athletes, because it does seem more often than not these guys don't learn their lesson.
And even if it's not, completely proved to be true, you've got a guy who's already in the doghouse because he's been lazy, made some lazy plays. He's not having a great season. Yeah,
I don't even want to talk about his style, his play. It's, to me, and I'm very pro Odubel on the baseball field. I've always felt like he's a great player, but that the second we start sitting there and considering he's already in the doghouse, like this, it seems like this cop out, and we're doing this thing because he's on a ridiculous cold stretch. I want to choose to tackle this act and what he's done specifically on his actions off the field, and to me, it's a disservice to that young woman who, had the misfortune of going through something like that. If we begin talking baseball, so the Odubel factor, man, it's super, super disappointing. And I just hope, I hope that it's not true. I obviously hope that nothing, comes of this and he can be clearly proven as innocent. But if it happens to go the other way, I hope the Philadelphia Phillies do something we can be proud of.
And the tough thing in this situation is that what happened supposedly took place inside the bedroom where there's no cameras there. So if they go back and they ask the casino security for footage, all they can provide is what they saw going on in the hallways and out in the casino, the gambling area. They don't have footage from what happened in the bedroom. So things may end up being inconclusive, but if there's enough evidence to support the claims that were made, Odubel needs to be gone. Like I said, yesterday.
Agreed.
Absolutely
agreed. So that's something we will continue to monitor. We'll continue to put something out as we hear more credible news and more definitive decisions on Odubel's behalf and the story that is, Odubel and this, this young woman from the casino. So that's going to move into let's lighten stuff up for just a second here. So we're going to roll in one of our first inner segment bits here for In Kap We Trust. This is called GoFund Me, a Pat Neshek story. If you were to author a page of a GoFundMe account for Pat Neshek asking for money to fix his vagina, what would your introductory statement sound like?
I wouldn't even go for fixing the vagina. I'd just say, my friend needs to raise money to get a prosthetic pair of balls because he doesn't have any. That's Pat Neshek. He doesn't have the balls to go out there and pitch on back-to-back days. He doesn't have the balls to go out there and pitch after he's warmed up in back-to-back days, which is absolutely ridiculous. So, yeah, go out there, get him a new pair of balls because apparently he does not have any.
Oh, that's rich. I love it. All right, so I actually wrote what I would want the definitive bio to be. So this page is to raise funds to surgically reopen the left fallopian tube of Pat Neshek. The blockage in his lady parts has made it difficult to pitch, putting an abnormal amount of stress on his shoulder. I don't know how that works either. Just believe me, it's true. Any extra funds raised will go to the exploratory surgery to attempt to find his missing testicles. Yes, we believe that Pat is in fact two-spirited. GoFund Me. So, if you would like your stories of Pat Neshek and your introductory bios, this is going to be something that for as long as Pat Neshek is a member of the Philadelphia Phillies organization, we can assume that he's never going to take the baseball when we want him to, and it will be a constant source of fun and just poking at different things for Pat Neshek. So, if you would like to be featured and your story to be featured on the Pat Neshek GoFundMe story, please tweet at the Always Next Year Podcast Twitter account at ANY Podcast and just say, GoFundMe a Pat Neshek story, and then type it out for us. But to bring things a little bit back on track, we started talking about a few things here. We started talking about a few things here with the offense already, but the offense hasn't been consistently putting it all together. When they do put it together, we get games like Game 2 of the St. Louis series, where it was literally like a home run derby at CPP. Then there are plenty of games where we're scoring 2 runs or less, and they look, pretty lost at the plate, and we end up with our Fire Malley rants from you, Rob.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm going to go back to. The consistency is because John Malley is a hitting coach. No, seriously, it's ever since, I've said it before, I've said it 1,000 times before, ever since John Malley took over as the hitting coach, they've had such inconsistent approaches at the plate. Some games, they're super patient. They're working walks and all that kind of stuff. They're getting on base. Other games, they're super aggressive, swinging at the first pitch, popping out, having bad at-bats. There's no balance to it. And there never has been under John Malley. And that's, to me, a big reason why they've been so inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much, a hitting coach really has to do. I mean, we've seen it, throughout the years, firing different guys throughout the 2008 to 2012 run that the Phillies had. We saw several different hitting coaches come in there. We don't always see too many things change, but the approach there and those game plans, it's fairly consistent throughout, and they do seem to struggle. And, so Malley, again, I don't know how much the firing of him would do it, but yeah, it's, like I said, the inconsistency of the offense it's maddening. To me, the Harper thing is, I've always felt like he's been overly criticized here in his, early Philadelphia going. But I acknowledge that he hasn't been as phenomenal as we would have wanted and hoped. Hoskins is just, he's the Braden Shen of baseball. This guy is so streaky. He will go on a tear where he hits 10 home runs in 15 games, and then he won't hit one for 160 at bats. And you're like, what the hell happened to my 4-hole hitter? So that to me is a big concern. That one I actually do attribute a bit to your Malley explanation. To me, I have always kind of felt like they make Reese fit a particular style of hitting that doesn't necessarily fit him. So that one, that's tough. You obviously want your players to fit the mold and the expectation of your offense, but at a certain point, you gotta, like Segura. They let Segura be Segura. At a certain point, I would let Reese be Reese. I don't think that he always needs to. I think he still sees the most pitches per at bat, and I don't always think that's what he needs to do. But we'll see how these guys adjust. Hoskins has started to hit the baseball well a little bit over the last couple weeks now. So
he's been hitting the ball back up the middle, which is encouraging to see. He had a center field home run in Milwaukee.
mm-hmm.
He's had a couple RBI base hits back up the middle in this St. Louis series, and he would have had another if Harper didn't get gunned down at home plate
by a perfect play.
But yeah, it's good to see him going up the middle, just like we said with Bryce.
Yeah.
I think that once he starts doing that and collecting base hits, the power will come back as well.
I agree, and I also sit there and think too, as this has been garbage weather for the Northeast over the last month. So he hasn't always had the most favorable of weather conditions either. So I do think that's tough. The ball stings your hands a little bit differently. So I do think that as the weather warms here, it's really, really, really going to help this lineup. But not Franco is still garbage, by the way. I don't care how far he hit that baseball last night. Maikel Franco is back to being Maikel Franco, which to me says Scotty at third base, and I'm cool with that.
We know who that's going to piss off.
Good. I don't care. We're going to villainize the hell out of him on this podcast. I don't give a shit. But not everyone has struggled, right? Not everyone has struggled. So Scotty, here, I got just a few things in May, right? Since coming back from his hamstring injury, Scott Kingery is hitting 344. He's slashing 344, 382, 594. He's only had the one home run. He's got 3 RBIs, but he's got 6 runs scored. Considering where he is in the lineup, the 1 home run, the 3 RBI, and the 6 runs, that's pretty average. And he's only played half the month. So Scotty Kingery continues to rake because he's a goddamn good baseball player. Andrew McCutchen, that's been the guy, right?
Playing much better.
That
so much
has
better.
been the guy. He's slashing 284, 398, which is 398 OBP is legit. 474 for slugging percentage. He's got 4 home runs, 18 RBIs, and 18 runs scored out of the leadoff hole. So he is walking a ton. The other night he walked 3 times and hit a home run.
Yeah.
He accounted for 4 runs. But they said it on the broadcast. The last person to do that was Andrew McCutchen in 2012.
That's pretty impressive.
He's a special dude when he is on, and he's really turned things around. So that's been really, really promising. And then obviously our last and favorite here is Cesar. Cesar is a maddening baseball player because in the same game he can totally rake and then he can screw around in the bases and make errors in the field, and you just have no idea whether or not to enjoy him or be pissed off at him. He's very Odubel-like from that regard. But this month he has been on a freaking tear. He is slashing 352, 400, and a 593 slugging percentage. He's got 4 home runs, 18 RBI, and 11 runs scored. That dude should be starting in second base for the All-Star game right now. And I'm not even a Cesar fan, but holy shit. I got to give it up to Cesar there. Not everyone sucks, right?
Not everybody.
Not everyone sucks. Now, do we credit Malley for the good players or just the bad?
Just the bad.
Just the bad.
Because the good players, I feel like, no, just by the eye test, the good players are doing it on their own merit. The good players, they're going out there and they're just being themselves in their at-bats. It doesn't seem like they're following what a hitting coach supposedly will be telling them to do. They're just going out there and they're doing what they're comfortable doing. Whereas the guys who are struggling a little bit, it looks like they're more keen on buying into a system.
I'd say that's pretty fair. Scotty is he has a far different approach this year than he had last year. They were forcing him to watch pitches and work pitchers, and that's just not Scott. He's very Segura-like.
He's not falling into 0-2 counts in 97% of its at-bats.
And that's so welcoming. So good for Scotty. His aggressiveness in pitch selection is really smart this year. Obviously, Andrew McCutchen's a pro. And to me, had they tried to force him into playing a different style of baseball, I'd have been really disappointed in Malley and the Phillies. So I'm glad that he is being Andrew McCutchen. And Cesar, he has quietly improved in each of his offensive categories each year. Or at least from a hitting standpoint, not necessarily on the bases. But he's just dangerous, man. And he's bulked up some, even more. Again, that home run he hit off the second deck, facing the other night, that was ridiculous. So good for Cesar, man. So not everyone sucks. So like half the time I cannot be mad at Malley, but the other half the time I do want to throw him off the Ben Franklin. I'm with you. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, back when Cesar was in his first or second year, we wouldn't even see him hit the ball over the fence. I think he had like one home run his first season. And it was like a line drive to land in the first row. Now he's hitting balls that are... The one in Milwaukee was off the back of the bullpen wall in right center field. That one was a bomb. And then last night, or not last night, 2 nights ago, off the facade of the second deck. It's really impressive. I don't look for him to be a power hitter, but it's really impressive how much his power has kind of grown over the course of a few years.
Yeah. I agree. And the Philadelphia Phillies have obviously challenged him to bulk up and challenged his body to be more to fit their style. He hasn't necessarily lost a step in speed. He's always been a garbage base runner. But, he's just, he's really, really impressed me this year. And to me, a lineup, and I would not have said this going into the season, but a lineup with Cesar and Scotty in it versus one or the other, I'm always going to take a lineup with both. So, congrats to Cesar. You're having a hell of a first half here, man. So good for you. Transition back over to fifth starter here. We're going to give a little bit of just a little bit of time to this since we have kind of discussed it already. We know Vince Velasquez is the bullpen arm now. How they choose to manage and use him has to be smarter than how his first two outings were. Really, just the second outing. Pivetta gets his call back up. We assume he's going to get another start or two. It's going to be against LA or I don't think it'll be LA. I think it'll be first game San Diego, that's a good offense, So he has to be better in the first inning again. He's got to get himself going. So we assume that at least for a short period of time, it's going to be Nick Pivetta. Cole Irvin was pulled. I already mentioned. Is he a long man? Do they go with a 6-man rotation for a week or two just to give those guys an extra day here and there? They do have a lot of baseball coming up, a lot of division baseball after this stretch coming up. What would you do here with that fifth starter? Do you just roll with Pivetta at this point, and do you risk sending him down again? I don't think you can send him down again. Like what the hell does that tell Nick Pivetta?
No, you can't send him back down. I think that obviously we talked about before it was a little bit early to bring him back. I think that I agree with you that Cole Irvin should have gone a couple more starts, but now that you've made that move, I don't think you can undo it at this point. You've got to stick with Pivetta for at least the next handful of starts. I do think they're going to kick the tires. Keuchel looks like he might be out of the picture, but there have been some rumors swirling around about the Phillies trying to do their due diligence on Bumgarner, trying to figure out a package that they might be willing to send out to San Francisco.
Sure.
Which obviously, if Bumgarner comes over, then somebody else gets moved down in the rotation. Maybe Zach Eflin becomes that fifth guy. But right now, you got to roll with Pivetta because you've already made that move to bring him back up. You don't want to just bring him back up and send him right back down.
Yeah, I don't want to yo-yo this kid.
No, absolutely not. That's going to kill his confidence, and that's going to really hurt his development as a pitcher. So you got to keep him in that fifth spot for now, at least for the next handful of starts. If he does well, then he keeps the job. If he doesn't, then you have another decision to make.
Yeah, to me, I think you hit it on the head. You can't yo-yo the guy. You cannot throw him down in AAA again if he doesn't do well. And that next decision that they're going to have to make is whether or not he goes to the bullpen. To me, I don't know how you can keep him in the rotation if we get the first few starts of Nick Pivetta. So I was very encouraged. I mean, you mentioned it that you thought he pitched very well after the first inning. After that 3 runs he gave up there.
Yeah, after the first inning, I went on Twitter and said that he should retire from baseball. And then after, I don't know if I did it in the group text or whatever, but after his start was finished, I backtracked on it and said that he actually pitched pretty well.
Yeah.
That first inning was not encouraging, but the 4 after that were pretty good.
Yeah, he battled. It was a very Nick Pivetta start. So there were some things to be encouraged about. There were some things to be less than encouraged. If we're going to move the goalposts here, the weather sucked. There was a rain delay. There was a lot of factors into why he could have had a rough first inning. But, you know, first of all, credit to the Phillies, by the way, because Cabrera was making his major league debut, and that never goes well for the Philadelphia Phillies. And they tagged him, you know. They tagged him, they tagged the whole bullpen. That was a hell of a game overall. So, you know, good for the Phillies, who finally beat someone on their major league debut, because that never happens. You know, the Keuchel thing, you know, like we said, he's possibly a Yankee, possibly a Ray. He's said that he is willing to go 1 year, $18 million at this point. And if it's 1 year for $18 million, I'd probably do it. You know, I would, at this point, you know, I would sit there and say, yeah, you know what? I trust you in October before I trust anyone else in our rotation right now. You know, and that's not exactly saying much, but, obviously the Bumgarner thing is I still have dreams of that, but
it'd be like pulling teeth to get, Keuchel on a good deal.
Yeah.
You know, 1 year, $18 million, it's a bit expensive, but if he's the best option available, I think you gotta pull the trigger on it. But before you do that, if there's any possibility of obtaining Bumgarner, I think that needs to be the first priority.
I agree. And I trust Bumgarner in the postseason. Like, I genuinely don't give a crap what his stats end up looking like for the regular season. But if you give me that guy in October, man, I already feel good. You know, I already feel like I'm getting 6 innings. I already feel like I'm getting 6 very competitive innings. He's just, and I feel like if we needed to go with just 3 starters and work everyone else into the pen, I feel like he would take the ball. I feel like Arrieta would take the ball, and I feel like Nola would take the ball, all on short rest. And dude, give me those 3. Awesome. Like, I'm totally fine with it. Or at this point, maybe even Eflin. But yeah.
To me, Bumgarner, maybe his stats aren't what they normally are, but I think he's still a guy who's in the prime of his career. He's suffering from having a crap team around him. You know, it's a lot tougher to pitch when you don't have any run support. That's a team that's 12 games, 11 games under 500 right now. They're in the process of getting swept by the freaking... Actually, they beat Miami today, but they just lost a series down in Miami, which is pretty bad.
Well, we also lose series to Miami, but
that's a team that's 11 games under 500 right now. I think that if he comes over to a team that has a winning record that's in first place, that could be revitalizing to him. Oh, yeah. Much like it was for Justin Verlander when he went to Houston.
Same thing for Hamels.
For Hamels as well, yeah. You come from a bad team to a good team, it can, as a pitcher, it can really be rejuvenating, and I think that would be the case with Madison Bumgarner.
Who can we get him to date and then marry? Because Verlander, I'm convinced it was not just going to the frickin' Astros.
That's a good question.
I think it needs to be Olivia Munn. I think it needs to be. I found a way to work her back into In Kap We Trust. It needs to be Olivia Munn. So Olivia Munn, if you listen to this show, if Bumgarner comes to Philly, if he's not already married, shit, if he already is married, I don't give a damn. Olivia Munn. She'll show you the way, man. But yes, so fifth starter, we have a multitude of different options here, and things are going to get really creative over the next 60 days for the Philadelphia Phillies. But, you know, we've mentioned it already. We've closed out the last 3 series. We have LA and San Diego coming up. So just quick predictions for how you think the next 2 series will go against LA. 3 games against LA. What do you think we go?
3 games against LA. This is a statement series for the Phillies. I think they're going to be motivated going into it. LA's got the best record in the National League. The Phillies have the second best record in the National League. I think the Phillies, they're going to be motivated. They're going to go in there and take 2 out of 3.
That's impressive. So when I wrote our notes originally and I was diagnosing these series, I had the Phillies going, taking just 1 of 3 against LA. I think LA is just too good, too deep, can beat you in too many different ways. Then Bryce got hot. Shit, I'm taking 2 out of 3 too. I think that this is a team that is just heating up, and I think a statement game is probably the perfect way or a statement series is the perfect way to say it. So yeah, I'll take your 2 out of 3 out of that one as well. Do you think that a little bit of a letdown series then playing San Diego?
That's what I was going to go with against San Diego. I think they would take 1 out of 3 in that series.
Yeah,
San Diego's a much better team than they've been in years past. They got some guys who can absolutely rake. Renfroe's a great hitter. Hosmer's having a nice season. They've got some guys who can mash. Machado is not really living up to his contract, but he's still Manny Machado. He can still beat you in so many different ways. So that's going to be maybe a team that they overlook a little bit, and it comes back to bite them.
I kind of view them similarly to how I view like the Twins. Like I know they're still a decent team coming in. Now the Twins are phenomenal this year. What they're doing is crazy. But when the Twins came in, like I was like, it's the Twins. But like, they're a good team. We took 2 out of 3 from the Twins. I think we're going to take 2 out of 3 from San Diego. I think that they're very, like I go into those series with a very similar mindset because like there's nothing sexy about the San Diego Padres. Nothing sexy about the Minnesota Twins. But they're both really good baseball teams. Obviously, the Twins significantly better than the Padres, but
the Twins can absolutely match. They hit like 7 homers a game.
They're filthy. That team is absurdly good right now. I don't know. My brain doesn't comprehend it yet.
And the Phillies got lucky. We didn't hit them we hit them before they peaked.
Yeah. And look, they were still a good team. They're still a first place team at the time, but they were not what they're doing right now. That's a fun team to watch. So you have them going 3-3 on the trip. I actually have them going 4-2. Originally, when I wrote our notes, I had 3-3 as well, but I'm starting to feel it here for the Dodgers series. So I think we also take 2 out of 3. So this is going to bring us to our second interbit segment right before we close this one out. Arrieta's axe. So I went back and forth about different kinds of intersegment bits that we can make a little bit fun. So one thing we've joked about almost the entirety of the baseball segments here has been the fact that Jake Arrieta just looks like someone who would murder you with an axe and just not give a damn. Like he is a bad dude. We've always said, last year we said Scotty Kingery would be his first victim.
I think it's Cesar this year with his fielding.
You think it's Cesar?
With his fielding.
All right, so what this
maybe
bit
he can
is,
make up for it with his bat, but his fielding's still been pretty bad.
His fielding is pretty atrocious. So we're going to give a serious victim to Arrieta's axe, and then maybe not so serious victim to Arrieta's axe. So you've said Cesar for your serious one, right?
Correct. For
his fielding purposes. So I went similarly. I went to Segura. Segura's actually had a handful of errors on Arrieta starts. He's also been out of position. Not necessarily his fault. Could have been the shift. Could have been the research. Could have been the analytical data. Who knows? But he has not been awesome for Arrieta yet. So his middle of the infield is about to be just straight up murdered by an axe, according to ANYP anyway. So, a non-serious, who do you think would be another victim of Jake Arrieta?
One of these days, he's gonna have one of those media interviews where he just places the blame on the rest of the team like he normally does. And somebody's gonna chirp him on Twitter, you tag him in his Twitter handle and whatnot, and he's actually gonna hunt the guy down with his axe.
Oh, all right. That's actually better than mine. So I said that it would be one of the Citizens Bank Park chefs that prepare their food for specifically not having bone-in meat. I feel like he's a guy who just wants to walk up to a table, like Flintstone style, like just decked out and just, I'm going to hunt, clothing, walk up with an axe, want to grab any type of meat by its bone and just start walking away and tearing at it and just gnawing. And I feel like because that maybe might not be an option in Citizens Bank Park's kitchen and diner area, that he may just go full out and just be like, I'm going to fuck up a chef. Oh shit, we can't curse in the segment
I could totally believe it.
So I feel like that was mine. So Arrieta's axe is going to be one of the mainstays here. We also have Would You Rathers. We have different things like that. We've always had different games. We've had Selly and Philly. The GoFundMe page for Pat Neshek is a good one as well. But that's pretty much going to wrap stuff up. We're going to go to a final thought here. So the final thoughts are going to be a little bit different now. We're going to actually put some real thought into our final thought and come in and kind of surprise each other with our one last bit of conversation. So what do you got for us, Rob? What's your final thought here?
Well, Bryce is going to stay hot, and eventually it's going to rub off on Reese. I think that eventually we're going to see them go into a streak where they're, mashing back-to-back home runs on a regular basis. Bryce will have a multi-homer game. Reese will have a multi-homer game. I think that eventually within the course of the next month or so, we're going to have, a point where we see both of them just get red hot, and the Phillies will be virtually unbeatable when that happens.
Oh, talk dirty to me. I love it. I love it. I think in light of 2 different circumstances, 3 really, I think that at the very, very latest, September 1st, will be the day that Adam Hazley is the everyday center fielder for the Philadelphia Phillies. I think this for 3 reasons. One, the Odubel situation. It's obviously unfortunate, but we have to acknowledge it. 2, Scotty Kingery, even though he's played center field in college, he's played center field, obviously at the major league level, spotting here and there in his minor league career occasionally. He's not a good center fielder. I do trust, give a month there, 2 months there, 3, whatever it is, he'll turn himself into a good center fielder. The more you do something as a natural athlete, the better you will get. But he's not an outfielder. To me, I think Scotty slides into that third base spot, and we have Mike Cal off the bench there.
And L has a damn stroke.
And then, what?
L has a damn stroke.
Probably. Look, man, and look, he can get hot too, like we saw it last year. And obviously we saw it for the start of this year, but still, Mike Cal's just freaking Mike Cal, whatever. But I do think that by the latest, it's going to be Adam Hazley. He's going to be the everyday center fielder for the Philadelphia Phillies. And I'm super, super excited for it. He got promoted to AAA. That was the third reason.
3 for 4 with 2 doubles.
3 for 4 with 2 doubles and 2 RBIs. 2 RBI, excuse me. So great for Adam Hazley. So I'm super excited for any prospect that comes up, but certainly a former first round pick of just a few years ago. He'll kind of be the first of the 3 outfielders to see some major league action. And that, again, super, super exciting. So 2 good final thoughts there.
Yeah, and Hazley being up at AAA means reasons to go see the Iron Pigs.
100% agree. We probably should have went and saw that today. But anyway, that's going to conclude things here. Before we sign off, we want to remind you guys that on Saturday, June 1st, we will be having our very first live show. Some of you have met up with us in Wawa and scared the shit out of me. Some of you have met me in giant food stores on occasion. We've all met at different times. I think each one of us on the podcast have met different followers and fans and viewers at Citizens Bank Park or at the Wells Fargo Center. We promise we're not always awkward. We're just not used to it yet. When you come up to us and we have no idea who you are, it's because we have no freaking idea who you are, and it's very strange to us. This is actually a setting that says we're here specifically to meet you people. So when you come, we're not going to be awkward anymore. We're going to be normal human beings. And if you want to get to meet us, I will literally stop in the middle of a sentence and segment to pet a dog. Bring your dog. That helps. That's a fantastic icebreaker. Fantastic icebreaker. Yeah, Rob's got a dog. We got a dog in studio half the time.
A couple times.
Yeah, he's a great guy as long as he's not being an ass.
His name's Bryce too. So
his name is Bryce. One day we'll tell the story of why he was named Bryce, which is pretty goddamn romantic, if I must say so myself. But again, we will be at New Britain Day in New Britain, PA, which is it just north or just south of Doylestown?
It's just south of Doylestown. It's at Covered Bridge Park.
Covered Bridge Park in New Britain, PA. It's 229 Keeley Ave, New Britain, PA 18901. And again, if you're in the Bucks County area and you want to help support a community day, we'll have a bunch of different tents there, a bunch of food, fireworks. Come on down. It's supposed to be really nice weather, and we will definitely be excited to meet you guys. We will have a third microphone there if you want to jump in on segments. But we expect to be there for a few hours, so we'll record a handful of things there.
We might seem like assholes on the show, but I can promise you we're not that bad in person.
No,
I'm still kind of an asshole. Not really.
I mean, we're sarcastic,
yeah.
But we're real.
We won't bite your head off.
That's 100, unless, of course, you say something negative about Scotty Kingery, in which case you're probably going to fuel my rage. But when you're not at New Britain Day and you're just at home and you're doing anything that you typically do throughout the day, be sure to subscribe to our show. Apple iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spreaker, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to podcasts, you should be able to find us. Just search Always Next Year Podcast, subscribe to our show. Have your friends and family subscribe to the show. Have strangers subscribe to the show. When you're walking around at New Britain Day, if you happen to end up there, just walk around and say, hey, have you seen those guys over at New Britain Day? First of all, they're handsome as fuck. Probably still can't curse in this segment, but screw it.
Dollar in the swear jar.
Yeah, I think that's $3 I owe at this point now. I think I've dropped a couple F-bombs, and I think I said shit twice, so that would be the second time. So we'll see. But yeah, so get other people to subscribe to the show. And follow us on Twitter at ANY Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter, the host of In Kap We Trust. It is at Shane_Mead. And you can follow Rob. Rob, where are you at on Twitter, dude?
At Radio_Rob.
Again, we will see you guys hopefully on Saturday, June 1st at our very first live day where we will actually meet some of you on purpose. And that will go so much smoother than when we meet you not on purpose. That'll be it for Kap We Trust here at the Always Next Year podcast studios.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back, hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a rib or two, he beat me Sunday through and through, danced a jig over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
This has been a production of the Always Next Year Podcast Network. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, Spreaker, and SoundCloud. Please also remember to rate and review this podcast to validate our members' life choices. We appreciate it. This is ANYP, signing off.